welcome to my channel, The Visionary Parent, Empowering Parent-Child Relationships, and to the series of wisdom from parenting experts. I am your host, Apurva Tare Yadwadkar. I am an inner child healer and a child psychology coach. I am on a mission to help 1 million parents heal their inner child, help them build a vision for their children, and hence empower their relationship with them. So today in the Wisdom from Expert series, I have a very special guest, a great friend, a colleague, and my personal coach, Dr. Paul Jenkins. So before I call him on the stage to share some excellent parenting tips and value nuggets, let me introduce him to you. He is a clinical psychologist, a TEDx speaker, a positivity enthusiast, specializing in the science of practice of positivity. As a coach, keynote speaker, and trainer, author, and host of a popular podcast and YouTube channel, Live on Purpose, he empowers individuals, families, and influencers to go far beyond traditional therapy or positive thinking programs to create and live the life they love through powerful positive psychology process, guiding you through empowering your relationships, increasing your happiness and satisfaction, improving your influence, and upgrading every aspect of your life through proven positive psychology processes. Please help me welcome my mentor, Dr. Paul Jenkins. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. I am truly honored to have you here, and I'm grateful you accepted my invitation to interview you.
As you were introducing me, Apurva, I just felt so grateful for you. Here's Apurva, who's the author of The Visionary Parent, and you're making a difference for so many families, and I am so honored to be with you here today. This is fun for me.
Yeah, I'm truly looking forward to it. And I'm glad I get to ask you a lot of questions that I've been meaning to ask. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to comment really quickly that this working with parents, is the most important work we can do. I was visiting with a colleague not too long ago. He's a very well-known psychologist and researcher in mostly trauma and trauma recovery. And he said this. He said, the very best thing we can do to help with the mental health crisis that our world is facing is to help parents do a better job raising their kids. That was what he came to. And this is a very well-known psychologist. I love that you're doing this and that you're spreading the word to parents, like all of you who are watching here today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your job as a parent seriously. And we've got you too. We've got your back on this. We can help.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Doctor. For me. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have and get into a fun conversation.
Absolutely, Doctor. Thank you so much. I've always been meaning to ask you that I know that your journey has also not been on a smooth road. You had your own hiccups, your roadblocks, your challenges. But even though you are a clinical psychologist, what exactly got you into this journey of parenting, and why did you feel it is important to be a coach, a parenting coach? Now, I know you were talking about Bessel van der Kolk, and I know that you have mentioned this in my book as well. So I have read it a couple of times. So what exactly got you into this? What was your purpose on starting your own coaching journey?
Thank you. And you're right. It's not always a smooth journey. In fact, welcome to Earth. That's kind of how we roll here, right? You're going along through life and you expect a certain thing, and then surprise, something else happens instead. And Apurva, you also know that sometimes our calling finds us instead of us finding our calling.
Yes.
Right? And so my journey has been one of Well, I started when I went to college. When I went to the university for the first time, I was a chemical engineering major. Okay, now what does that have to do with parenting?
Yeah.
Right? But I was really good at math and science. But like I said, sometimes your journey finds you. And I had an opportunity to do some volunteer missionary service for my church in Finland, of all places. And it's interesting to get into conversations with you about that too. I discovered in that process that my real passion, what I really want to do, is to have meaningful conversations with people about real principles that change their life for the better. That's what my missionary service accomplished for me. It taught that to me about myself. And so I came home from that experience, switched my major to psychology, and never looked back. Wow. It's been such a fun ride for me, because that put me in a place where we can have principle-based conversations about things that really make a difference and increase the joy and happiness that we can experience in our life. And then I had a whole other journey switching from traditional psychotherapy over to positive psychology, where I hang out now. But as far as the parenting piece, here's what's really interesting about that. Once we become parents, nothing else seems quite as important as doing a good job for our kids. But we don't get very much training for that. All we have is what our own parents taught us, or what society hands us, or what's traditional. And so a lot of times we get frustrated, or we feel stuck. And I have a lot of parents who, they don't want to do this, but they end up yelling at their kids, or, being so angry. And in fact, on my YouTube channel, the number one video, Apurva, for the last 4 years, how to get kids to listen without yelling. In fact, if you type that into your YouTube browser right now, guess what? My video is going to come up. How do I get my kids to listen without yelling? You're going to see my goofy face pop up, because that video, it told me what's frustrating parents. They want to do a good job for their kids, and then they feel guilty or ashamed because they get so frustrated or stuck that they end up yelling. And then they don't like it that they're yelling. I don't know, maybe that's how you found me originally.
I think so.
And there's reasons for that. And we'll probably get into that a little bit today on our discussion. But that kind of naturally fell into my hands as I put messages out there, and I found out very quickly that parents are hurting and they want help. They want to do a good job, and it's not their fault. They've just been trained and taught and educated to handle things in a way that doesn't usually work. And that's so frustrating. So that's why I'm so grateful that people like you are putting the message out there to help parents just latch onto the principles that are going to help them have a much better experience. And it's helping the kids too.
Yeah. I remember my journey, like, my story, right? How I started. But I also remember, when I was so desperate for help, I needed help because there was so much anger within me that anger would, usually tend to be vented upon to my child only, because she was the only defenseless person in my family, right? Any adult would obviously defend themselves, but my child wouldn't, because she is the most defenseless person. And that's the reason I would yell and, vent all my frustrations, all the anger that I had within. But when I still remember, I started watching your videos. I don't know, it was coincidental, or I don't believe in coincidence anymore. So it was meant to, me finding you as my mentor, because there's a saying, right? When you are ready, your mentor appears, right? When the student is ready, the mentor appears. So that's the whole story for me as well. And I am truly honored and glad to be in your community, and I've like literally grown so much. So thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I'm really glad to know your journey and truly humbled. Which brings me to the next question. So, Doctor, you always say that our primary job as a parent is to love them no matter what and even if, right? Although
Yes.
we all know this, like subconsciously, we all know that that is our job, but there are times when we don't feel love at all for them, for their behavior, because we are so angry at them for not listening to us or not abiding to our rules, right? And that just happens out of the blue, like it's in the heat of the moment, right? What would you suggest we must do to control the urges of getting angry and venting all the frustrations?
Thank you for that question, because what this does is gets us to a different level. And as a psychologist, let's acknowledge that there are things going on in our own mind that we're not always aware of. And my job is to illuminate the obvious, which is fun because I get paid to tell people things they already know. But there's obvious things that are completely unnoticed. Okay, like the feeling of your clothing, for example. Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Well, now you can.
Yeah, now I'm conscious about it.
Now it's like, oh yeah, there it is. Well, that's what I mean. See, it's obvious, but unnoticed until it's called to your attention. Okay, so let's go back to the anger for a minute. Those feelings where you just end up yelling at your child. Okay, and then you feel guilty afterwards because that's not like you. That's not who you are as a parent. But you end up doing it. Why? Because you felt anger. Well, what came before the anger? Frustration. Typically, you feel frustrated. Why did you feel frustrated? Because you expected this to happen and then that happened instead. For example, you expect your child to listen and cooperate, and then your child is defiant and refuses to listen. Okay, so frustration comes from an unmet expectation. You with me so far?
Yes.
Now, what if everything that our child is doing is exactly what we expected? Well, then we wouldn't feel frustrated. We wouldn't end up yelling. So we need to go to the very basics of child psychology. Actually, you know what, Apurva? This is also parent psychology. Because this is how parents think. And I teach this to kids all the time. Here's the basics, and it has to do with the interplay between control and maturity. Now, you know where I'm going with this because you know the model. And I think you even refer to it in your book, the visionary parent.
Yes.
Where we have to understand control and maturity. And I've put it into a visual model. Now, for those of you who are watching the video, you can see me holding up a version of this model. If you're just getting the audio version, I'll try to describe it to you in the best way that you can envision it. But here's the thing, you can also just go get a PDF full color copy of this. And I think, Apurva, you've got the link in the description.
Yes.
drpauljenkins.com. That's my website, /visionary parent. Because that's what we're talking about. That's Apurva's book, The Visionary Parent. So drpauljenkins.com /visionary parent. Just go get a copy of this. Okay. And it's a PDF. You can I'll send it right to your inbox. And print this out because you're going to want to refer to it. Here's the quick version. Is it okay if I just share what that's all about?
Yes.
Because this is where we start. Okay, this information will change the game for you as a parent.
It did for me, for sure.
And it did for me too. And that's why you and I are both sharing it. So on the up and down axis here is control, meaning control over your own life. And it goes from 0 at the bottom to 100% at the top. Now, as we create the graph down here on the, what's this, the x-axis? Do you remember your math classes?
Yeah.
Down here on the side-to-side axis is maturity, meaning how grown up you are. And so that might go from like birth to adulthood. All right. Now, the key here is that the more mature you are, the more control you get to have. So when you're first born, how much control do you have over your own life?
Nothing. No control.
Well, you can make a big noise and a big stink. That's about it. That's about it. You can't even turn yourself over when you're first born. Okay, so you don't have very much control. How about when you're an adult? How much control do you have?
Most, yeah.
Yeah, and adults are like, well, there's, you know, but kids understand that the adults have all the control, right? And so that's why we've drawn a diagonal line starting from the lower left-hand side of this graph to the upper right-hand side, there's a diagonal line. The part under the line is the control that you give for yourself. The part over the line is the part other people take in your life. That's where parents come in. And so as a parent, this is doubly important because you have to be in control of your own life in order to take as much control as you need to for your kids. Now, here's where it gets really fun, okay? Because it's about stage, not age, all right? What I mean is that, yes, when a baby is first born, they don't have much control over their life. But there are older people who are out of control. Yeah. And we describe that because of the maturity stages. So just a quick overview of what those are. We've broken it down into 3 stages, okay? Stage 1 is the least mature. Stage 1 is selfish and self-centered. Stage 1 is all about demanding and manipulating. Stage 1 is yelling and screaming and fighting and being defiant and oppositional. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Because your 2-year-old is really good at this. But what if you have a teenager who's doing that? What if you as the parent are yelling and screaming? Well, now you're out of control, right? Because this is the out of control stage. They don't have control. Now we expect that for an infant or a 2-year-old. And so when our 2-year-old throws a tantrum, it's like, oh, how cute, right? But if our 17-year-old throws a tantrum, we're like, oh. We don't expect, see, remember, go back to what we were starting with. That when something does not meet our expectations, we feel frustrated. That frustration leads to anger. That anger leads to yelling and screaming. And now we're out of control. Okay? So we have to understand it's about stage, not age. Now, stage 2 is when we stop fighting and start cooperating. In fact, if you've downloaded the model already, look at this. Cooperation is on the dividing line between stage 1 and stage 2. That's how we can tell that our kids are on stage 2. And notice, as a parent, you're not feeling quite as frustrated now because your child is cooperating, which you expected them to do, right? Notice you don't expect your 6-month-old baby to cooperate. And that's not a big problem with a baby because you can just pick them up and, you know, they're like, I don't want to go with you, mommy. And you're like, that's okay. You don't have to want to. I should drag them along and put them in their car seat.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that with 17-year-olds. I don't want to go with you, mom. oh, what am I going to do? This kid's bigger than I am. Right? Okay, so cooperation, stage 2. You don't want any trouble. You want to keep the peace. You're going to go along with things. Now, when we go to stage 3, that's the most mature stage. At stage 3, we're being responsible. At stage 3, we're really looking for what needs to be done so I can do it. And that's why I put the word initiative on the line right there between stage 2 and stage 3, because you don't even need to be asked. When your kids are on stage 3, they're taking care of business. They're just doing it. You go into their room and it's like clean. And their homework is done. And they've done their chores. And they're raising money for the family vacation or whatever. Okay. Now, that might seem like dreamland.
Yeah.
But the point is, as we become more mature, we get to have more control over our life, and it's about stage, not age. So as parents, we need to understand these 3 stages, first of all, so that we can be in control of ourselves. Look, if we're yelling and screaming, we're in stage 1. And now everybody's out of control. Okay. That's why it never sits right with you. That's why when you yell, you feel shame and guilt. Because it's not who you are. It's not typical of your maturity. But the way it helps us as a parent is now, okay, can we tell what stage our kids are in? Yes, we can. And when we know what stage our kids are in, we can take the appropriate amount of control based on what stage they're in. Okay. And we've got coaching and ideas to help people with, what if my kids are on stage 1? Well, here's a bunch of things you can do. What if they're on stage 2? Well, that's easier, right? Or what if they're on stage 3? You just back off and smile because your kids are taking care of business at that point. But the point is, we no longer feel frustrated because, well, of course my child's on stage 1. Here's the things that I need to do if my child's on stage 1. And those things, when we do them well, those things help to encourage our kids to move up a stage.
Yeah.
And so we can train them and help them. But this model for me, Apurva, this is really where we can take control of our job as a parent, which is to love them no matter what and even if. And because we love them, now we're going to meet them at the appropriate stage without the frustration, without the anger, without the yelling.
Yeah.
Because we know what to do for each stage. I know that's a really quick run through.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wall, for sharing this. For me, personally, I have literally implemented everything you tell me or you've told in all the modules, Parenting Power Up. And this model has been so useful. I can, I know for sure now that which stage my child is at any given point of time. And that has truly helped me. Like, it has literally liberated me. Also, there are times when I feel that she is at stage 3. She's taking care of everything. She's taking her own bath. She's brushing her teeth. I don't even have to like bother for a few things. And I'm really, really glad that the way we, go from stage 1, I remember having a discussion with you when I was really, on my lowest, and I was literally, my child was throwing tantrums for anything and everything. Right. And from stage 1, bringing her to stage 2 and stage 3 now, it's been a phenomenal journey for me as well as a parent. And you get to enjoy it in this process, right? So that's what I have learned from this model, that you get to enjoy rather than being frustrated all the time. So really, thank you for creating this model. It's definitely going to help millions of people around. And I am a personal, witness for the changes that I have noticed in my personal life. So really, thank you so much. So moving on to like on the same lines, you always say that yelling is a form of violence, right? Yeah. And what I would like to know is yelling like, if I do once in a blue moon, is that going to really change my child's psychology or damage her development, is what I would like to, would you like to throw some light on it?
Well, so this is a tricky question because we all do it.
Yeah.
Right? Are we destroying the next generation because we can't control our own temper? Now, there's no question about it that it's not a productive or helpful thing to do for kids. Here's the other thing that I know, though. You're a good parent. Now, I'm saying that to you, Apurva, and I know that you've got some weaknesses. I'm saying it to you who are listening right now. You're a good parent. How do I know that? You're watching this. You're listening to me and Apurva have this conversation. Why? Because you're a good parent. If you are committed to improvement, you'll always find ways that you can improve, right? The other side of this, though, children are remarkably resilient, okay? All of us had parents who yelled at us, didn't we? And we're okay. Are we scarred and blemished? Well, humans always have flaws and weaknesses, okay? And it's because of that we're imperfect beings. So let's give ourselves a little bit of forgiveness and compassion and not beat ourselves up because we have these weaknesses. Let's just keep focusing on making improvement. So yes, I want to help parents everywhere to find alternatives to yelling that are more healthy, more adaptive, that help our kids to develop and be more healthy themselves, because then hopefully they'll do a better job with their kids and we can continually improve the state of our world. Let's keep working on it. Will it damage my kids forever because I yelled at them? No. They're just going to be kids and they're going to have issues because you yelled, but they're going to have issues because of their diet and because of the environment and because of pollution. And welcome to Earth. You know, it's kind of rough here. We deal with stuff, but they're also resilient and brilliant and loving, and they can learn principles and apply them in their life. So I really prefer that we focus on those things and not worry too much about our weaknesses, but keep working on improving it. So as a professional psychologist, I'm going to give you permission to forgive yourself for that. And then let's not give up on it. Let's just keep moving forward. Okay? That may not have been the answer you were expecting, Apurva, but that's kind of where my heart is with it.
Yeah, I think so too, because even in my community, I literally, when I do the anger management course, like it was a 1-month course, and the number one thing that I told them to do, or suggested them to do, is forgiveness. Forgiving ourselves and forgiving others who are around us. We all have these weaknesses wherein we just hold grudges for people which do not serve any purpose for us. In fact, we are blocking abundance in that process, and we keep on going into that same loop, that this person did bad, like behaved in a wrong way, or this person did bad to me, right? So I totally agree with you that forgiving ourselves and at the same time others around us is so important, and it's the highest level of consciousness, is what I feel. So yeah, thank you so much.
Well,
Now,
forgiveness, if I can just add to that, because because we are imperfect beings, by design, it's our nature, it's the way we're supposed to be. There are always going to be things that come up. When they come up, not if, when they come up, we go back to principles like forgiveness, but also humility. Because if I yell at my kids, what's the next right thing for me to do? Well, I need to be humble and contrite about that, and maybe make an appropriate apology. That doesn't remove my authority as a parent, but it means I've got something I need to work on. And it's okay for you to say to your child, you know, I yelled at you. I am really sorry that I yelled at you, and I commit to finding other ways to deal with this in the future. And you still get a consequence for the thing you did that was wrong.
Yes. Wow, thank you so much, Doctor. Now we know, like those people who know you, we all know that you're a pathologically positive person, right?
Yes.
So I would like to
pathological
positivity, right? And I would like to move on towards, how to really remain positive, because these times of COVID are truly, like, I have seen personally many parents, due to this COVID, they are not able to, they are always with their children and they are not able to spend good quality time with themselves. And there is a lot of negativity around, right? So how can we, impart some wisdom from you, how to remain positive? Like, I know you're a pathologically positive person. So
yes. Well, and that, like you said, that is the subject of my first book is called Pathological Positivity.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when people throw out the word positivity, they don't even know what it means. And so for me, it's not just the trite, fluffy, oh, just think positive that you hear sometimes from motivational speakers or whatever. I'm coming at it from a very psychological perspective, because there is a choice between positivity and negativity. And I'm not here to tell people how to think. Okay. I don't have that kind of authority, but I do want them to see that they are thinking and that they have some choice in steering their thinking. I've created a whole model around that as well. But the short version, what can we do about it? It starts with gratitude for what it is, not for what we wish it was, all right, but for what it is. Because you mentioned the pandemic, for example. Okay, it is what it is. And I got a call. This was a couple of months into the pandemic, okay, and I got a call from one of my clients. It was a corporation, a hospital actually, that I had worked for before, teaching them positivity models. And they called me and said, Dr. Paul, can you help us figure out how to stay positive during such difficult times? And my question back to them was, what do you mean difficult times? And they're like, well, you know, the pandemic, right? I had just heard a speech a couple of years earlier from Immaculée Ilibagiza, who wrote a book called Left to Tell about her experiences surviving the genocide in Rwanda, okay, where 1 million people were killed in 90 days. Difficult times? Really? Compared to what? Right? And this just calls to attention that we're constantly making judgments in our mind. And when we say these are difficult times, we're comparing it to something easier. Well, how does it feel if we compare it to something harder? Oh, I'll take this. I'll stick with the pandemic. Thank you. I'm good. Right? Because compared to a genocide, this is a cakewalk. Now, I bring that to mind because we don't always notice. It's just like when I said, do you notice your clothing? Oh, there it is again. Now you feel it again, right? Because I called it
Yes.
your attention. But the thing that I want people to notice is that we are constantly evaluating or judging our life. So the quickest hack to switch that and take it to positivity is gratitude. Okay? Gratitude. You can even think about this with your kids. I'm so frustrated with my kids. And my answer would be, what? You have kids? Now, where did your mind just go?
Yeah. There are so many people who don't have the luxury
They
of
give their right arm to have a child.
absolutely.
And you've got one? What? Now, as you notice that, gratitude gets you into a positive evaluation of what's going on for you. And the exercise I would encourage people to try, just try this for 5 days, you guys, okay? 5 days, make a list of 25 things each day for which you are sincerely grateful, okay? And don't pretend you have to actually be grateful for it to put it on your list. The thing that powers it up, if at least half of your list every day, at least half, that's 13 if you're doing the math, okay? Every day is about something that is hard, difficult, challenging, painful, frustrating. Okay, and I'm not saying you have to be grateful for the pandemic necessarily. I'm saying look inside of that and see what from the pandemic or about the pandemic that you are actually grateful for. Put that on your list. If it's one of your kids, look for and ask your brain to find, what am I grateful for about this kid right now? The fact that you have a kid, okay? The fact that your child is healthy, even though they're, or maybe they're not healthy, but they're compliant. Or what it, you find what you're grateful for, put it on your list. This is almost magic, Apurva. When we get our mind, when we ask our mind to find what we're grateful for, do that for 5 days, it's going to change some things. That's the hack. That's what I would say that you start with. Now, there's other things that you can do, and we do this in our coaching programs all the time, because we can start from that space. If you get yourself into a feeling of gratitude, especially related to the difficult things that you're facing, it completely changes the energy, and from there you can go create all kinds of good things to come.
Yeah. I'm speechless at the moment.
Well, that is so powerful, and you know the power of it because you practice this.
Yes.
You teach it.
Yeah.
I hope that anyone, you who are watching this video or listening to this conversation between me and Apurva today, if you can find gratitude in your current circumstances, where you are, the way it is right now, without changing anything, you get yourself into a place of gratitude, and I guarantee, I promise, from there, we can make things even better. Even better. I promise. I know this.
Yes. And I have experienced the power of gratitude and the magic of gratitude, because in daily life there are people, there are situations which are going to be difficult. People are difficult with us. There are times, right? But even in those times, finding what you're grateful for, maybe that person just taught you a valuable lesson, right? That can be a possibility. So being grateful, I have literally seen transformation in my relationships when I switched my energy from being resentful towards being grateful towards them. So I've really manifested that kind of relationship. So yes, I totally agree with you, Dr. Paul. And I had such a wonderful time with you, Doctor. Like it's my, I'm truly humbled today to have you on my show. So
Well,
before, yeah.
I feel the same, by the way, Apurva, because I love what you're doing. And I support it 100%. You know this because I did an endorsement for your book and everything
Yeah.
else. I love what you're doing and that you have taken up the calling, really, to serve and assist parents, because there are so many answers that are within reach if we just know what principles to apply. So thank you also for the good work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. So before we end our discussion, one last question, like, would you like to give any last minute advice or tips for our audience here?
Well, consistent with what we've talked about here, the answers are within reach. This is doable. It's figure outable. You don't have to stay stuck. And hopefully our conversation here today has given you some hope about that. I think the message I would want to leave you with is that you are doing a good job. You are doing a good job. Now pause, feel that, notice how it feels to think, oh, a professional psychologist has told me I'm doing a good job. Okay, so just hold that for a moment, and then notice that your mind is going to tell you, yeah, but I could be doing better. When is that going to stop being true? Yes, and that's available to you as well. But I want you to just know you're doing a good job. Stay in that space for a moment, feel the gratitude, and then let's get busy creating some upgrades because they're available.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. So we are at the end of this conversation. If you really like this, just like, subscribe, and hit on the bell icon to get daily updates. If you want to join the Visionary Parent community, I'll be sharing the link below in the description. And as Dr. Paul promised us, there is a gift. I'll be updating the description. You have the description, you have the maturity versus control model in the description. So go ahead and download that, because that's going to truly change your life. And I will see you in the next time in the same series, Insights from the Parenting Experts. And see you till then. Bye-bye.